In this video, I'm going to show you how to get PSP games up and running on an Xbox Series X or S using Retroarch. The Sony PlayStation Portable was a very interesting handheld when it first released. From its disc-based media to just being able to watch movies on it, music, it was just this crazy all-in-one little entertainment device, and for the time, that was really, really cool. I mean, this was pre-smartphones, so you didn't just have this functionality in your pocket like you do today. This was really cool stuff. And then, of course, there was the hacking scene for it. It got hacked so fast, so you could play just a multitude of different emulation systems on it. It was just really, really neat, and man, I have no problem admitting that I literally bought a PSP as a music player, video player, and emulation device. That is what I used it for. I never really got into a lot of the PSP game library. Not a lot of them really spoke to me, but there are so many gems on this system worth checking out. And thanks to emulation, we can do that on so many different devices, now including the Xbox Series X and S, and I have to say this has probably been the best emulation experience on these consoles I've had so far. After getting the core set up, everything just works, it works well, and you can upscale it very nicely. I've not run into any issues in the few games I've tried so far. Again, I don't have the most PSP games, but it makes me confident that it should be good for most everybody as long as it fits within PPSSPP's compatibility list. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to need for PSP emulation is PSP Games. So I have my small collection of PSP games here. Again, I don't have very many. I have about 11 games total. I have 9 here on display. And I have them in 2 different formats. I have Ace Combat Joint Assault in ISO format, and then all the rest of them are in a compressed ISO format. It doesn't matter which one you choose. They seem to work either way. This is just how I've had them stored for years. Now, to get PSP games, you could dump them yourself using a modded PSP, or, hit up the Google for the shady parts of the internets, but again, I will not be providing download links as that is illegal and could compromise my channel, so no thank you. Any requests for download links are going to be deleted. Once you have your PSP games sourced, we're going to put them on an external USB drive. The PSP library is small enough that they will all work from USB, no problem. If you want to install them internally, you can follow my dev storage mode tutorial and go to the part where I show that off. But they all work externally, so for me personally, I see no reason to waste my internal drive space on them. So I'm just going to copy my PSP Games folder into my USB drive. Once you have your PSP games on your external drive, we need to make a PPSSPP assets folder. To do this, we're going to go to the PPSSPP homepage here and click on the download link here at the top. And we are looking for PPSSPP for Windows. From here, just download the latest version that is available. So as of this video, it's 1.10.3. Download the zip file. Once you have it downloaded, go ahead and extract it. Once it is extracted, open up the folder. And there is an assets folder right here that we need to be able to run PSP games within Retroarch. So rename this assets folder PPSSPP in all caps and copy it over to your USB drive. Once you have that PPSSPP folder and a PSP Games folder on your USB drive, you're good to close out of everything and load up your Xbox. Once you have your Xbox booted up into dev mode and are on the home screen, you can insert your USB drive if you haven't already. And it should pop right up. If this is the first time you've inserted this USB drive, it will ask you to format it as Xbox storage or media storage. Choose media storage, otherwise all the stuff you've put on here will be deleted. Now, before we can begin running PSP games, we need to move that PPSSPP folder into our Retroarch system folder. So launch into My Files Explorer. If you need access to the My Files Explorer app, you can find it in the dev mode storage video linked in the description. But once you have it installed, go ahead and open it. Navigate to Removable Storage Devices. Removable Disk E. Find your PPSSPP folder. Press Start, Copy Folder. Now navigate over to Isolated Storage here on the left. Navigate up here, click on Packages. And we're going to find our Retroarch folder. For me, it has always been this top one. If you have a bunch of different things installed, it might be a little bit different for you, but this is where it's always been for me, so I can open it up and see all of these other folders in here. And by going into the local state folder, I can see all of my Retroarch folders here, which lets me know I'm in the right place. So, folder with a bunch of numbers and letters, local state, scroll down, system folder, and now press Start, and go to paste. It might be hard to see it, so you can click up here as well, just right above your top folder and see it easier. But once you have that PPSSPP folder in here, we can go back to the home menu and load up Retroarch. From here, we can begin loading up PSP content. So you could do this either by going to the Load Content menu, scrolling down to your USB drive, and going to your PSP Games folder, and choosing one, selecting the core and having it run. I don't like that method, so I'm going to show you how to make a playlist real quick. So pressing left or right on your D-pad, you can go to the Import Content tab over here. Now go to Manual Scan. Choose your content directory, so this will be your PSP Games folder. So PSP Games, scan this directory. System name, press right on your D-pad to scroll down to Sony. And find PlayStation Portable, here it is. Default core, we're going to choose PPSSPP, so right on your D-pad down to the Sony section. And find PPSSPP. If you have subfolders, make sure Scan Recursively is set to on, and once you are ready, go ahead and click on Start Scan. Now, if everything worked correctly when you back out of here, there will be a new PSP logo somewhere over here, and there it is, PSP. So I had 9 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, it found all of them for me. And now that this playlist is made, I could just select a game, press A again to run it. And there we go, PSP Games loaded up on an Xbox Series X. Now, by default, PPSSPP does use Direct3D 11 as a backend, and unlike Dolphin or PCSX2, this one actually switches over to Direct3D like it's supposed to. If for whatever reason it doesn't for you, you will need to go into the drivers tab, change your video over to Direct3D 12 or 11 in order for it to load them up, but it should do it automatically. I haven't had issues with this core dropping back to Direct3D like it's supposed to, so just letting you know if you do have issues with that, you can set the driver manually here. But as you can see, PSP games have loaded up, and, well, at least the FMV sequence here for Crisis Core is working really well. And even gameplay is working flawlessly for Crisis Core. And again, from these 9 games, all have worked absolutely perfectly. Like, this is very solid. Little to no shader compilation stutter. Like, it's just been just a fantastic experience playing PSP games on the Series X. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I think I like this more than doing them on my PSTV. And just to show you one of the later PSP games released, this game is the third birthday, and it was released near the end of the PSP's life cycle. I went ahead and beat the prologue here, so that way we could just load into the second level, and it's just running beautifully. And it is just running without a hitch, even during gameplay. And even fighting games like Soul Calibur Broken Destiny are just running like an absolute dream. There's no hitching going into matches, there's no hitching during matches, it just runs absolutely perfectly for what the game was. And even Battlefront Elite Squadron is just working like an absolute champ. If you've never played this version of Battlefront, it's really fun actually, even with the PSP's limited control options. And my favorite PSP game, Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, is working no problem, no glitching, no nothing. It's just Final Fantasy Tactics at its abso-frickin-lutely best. So for all of you hoping to get PSP games up and running on your Xbox Series X, that's pretty much all there is to it. You just need to have PSP games and make that PSP asset folder so you can have text in games for the save screens and anything else that use the PSP's built-in text system. After that, you just select a game to load. You could do that with a playlist or not, it doesn't really matter, and you should be up and running. But now I'm going to go over some of the core options that are available within PPSSPP. We're not going to go over all of them because most of them just don't need to be touched. So from our game, we can launch into our quick menu with our hotkey combo. Scroll down to options. From here, the first option that we can change is the locked CPU speed. PSP games used a number of different clock speeds to run at, and eventually in a system update, Sony unlocked an even higher clock speed, about 33 MHz faster than the typical 300 it was running at. So you could go ahead and set a locked frequency here if you so choose. So there's 220 MHz all the way up to 333 MHz. You can experiment with it, see what works for you, otherwise you could just leave it off. The next option that you can mess with safely is the internal resolution. We're going to be skipping over all this other stuff because we don't really need to mess with it. But internal resolution, so this is the native resolution that your PSP games are going to be rendered at. By default, PSP ran at 480 by 272, and we can change this all the way up to a staggering 4800 by 2720. Now, I personally haven't really tested above 1080p, but if you're on a Series X and want to output at 4K, the option is here to do so. I'm not sure what type of performance hits this might add to the console, but it is an option here if you want to try it out. And once you have an internal resolution set, it does require a content restart, so just press B to back out of the main menu, close the content, and then when you reload into the game, it will be at the new resolution. So here is Mega Man Maverick Hunter X running at a full 4K, and it doesn't seem to be affecting performance at all for this title, but this is a very lightweight game, so I'd honestly be surprised if it did. So, I mean, test it out with your games, see what happens, and just choose your resolution accordingly. If you start getting performance hits, just lower it down a bit. The next option to mess with is texture scaling levels. So this lets you scale up textures. There are 6 different options available here, so try it out, see what you think. I'm gonna go with 3 myself. And it doesn't say this one needs a restart, but I haven't noticed a difference unless I've restarted. So choose your option and restart. Then you can also choose the scaling type between XBRZ, hybrid bicubic, or hybrid bicubic. I honestly don't have a preferred choice between these 4 options, so I just leave it on XBRZ myself. Next up is texture filtering, and this lets you choose between a nearest texture filter or a linear texture filter. So nearest gives you a more pixelated look. As you can see in the mountain back there and on the missile, the textures look a lot more PS1-ish. And with a linear filter on, it kind of blurs those pixels together to give it a smoother appearance. So choose whichever one makes you happier. Or you could just leave it set to auto and it'll just kind of always have the linear filter applied. So for me personally, I like having my 2D games set to nearest and my 3D ones set to linear. I think that just gives it the nice overall look between the two personally. Next up is anisotropic filtering. You can increase this up to 16 times. And for those of you that like HD texture packs, there is a texture replacement option you can enable here. You will need to go to the PPSSPP forums, see where you need to place this type of stuff. I am not familiar with PSP HD texture projects at all, so I have no idea how to set them up. But the option is there if you want it. Now we're going to skip over these last couple of options and go to the I/O timing method. And this lets us dictate how fast our PSP games load from our emulated UMD drive. So by default it's set to fast, so it will go as fast as it can to load your games. There are a few games that will not work with fast. I don't own any of them to really experiment with it, but if you have a game that won't load with fast, you could change it down to simulate UMD delays. This way it'll try to run it at native PSP speeds, so you will have increased load times, but better compatibility. But for the most part, you should be able to leave this on fast and be perfectly fine. One more thing I'm going to go over with you all real quick is in the controls tab. By default, your controller is mapped to be just like a PSP, so your left analog stick is the PSP's analog stick and the D-pad is the D-pad. One of the greatest things about emulation, especially for PSP, is that we can remap our controller so that the D-pad is on the right analog stick. This way, games that needed you to do camera control and analog stick at the same time are just way easier to play. So going down to port 1 controls, we could set our analog to digital type as the right analog. This way, our right analog stick will act as the D-pad. So now when I go back into Mega Man, I can control Mega Man with both my left analog stick and my right analog stick and the D-pad. Now for Mega Man this isn't too useful, but for games like The Third Birthday, you have to do camera control with the D-pad while moving around with the left analog stick, and it sucks. Peace Walker and Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops are another good one. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get shaders to work on the PPSSPP core yet. It uses Direct3D 11, and for whatever reason, I have not been able to get shaders to show up under the Direct3D 11 video driver. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm gonna keep messing with it and see if I can't figure it out, and then I'll have a dedicated shaders video up sometime in the future. But once you have your PSP games set up and running the way you like them, be sure to save a core override. That way, every time you load up a PSP game, these are the options that are going to greet you. And if you'd like to have different configurations per PSP game, you can also save them as a game override. So that way, every game has their own unique settings. And as far as PSP emulation is concerned, that's pretty much gonna do it. All the games that I have personally tested have been working absolutely stunningly, and it gives me a lot of hope for many PSP games to just run absolutely beautifully on the Series X and S. But as always, if you happen to have any questions, just go ahead and ask me down in the comment section below, and I will do my best to try to help you out. And now if you could all do me a huge favor and hit that like or dislike button, just depending how much you like today's tutorial, and if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit that sub button, so that way you can see whenever I upload a new tutorial just like this one. Really goes a long way to helping out the channel, and I am just so appreciative of all of you for that, so thank you all so much again. But let's close this one out, so until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, stay awesome, and we will see you all back next video.